שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב מניים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים טוב מתי, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב מתי, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב מתי, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב מתי, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה
Good morning. It is such a pleasure to see everyone for our 2021 Torah Fund Study Day. I am Gina Rezvanpur, PSW Region President. I would like to thank you all for supporting Torah Fund and Women's League. Our hardworking Torah Fund Study Day Committee, with the leadership of Torah Fund VP Roberta Spasia, has worked hard to provide us with an interesting and informative program. I hope you will enjoy today's program, and I'm looking forward to see you all at our 2021 Women's League Conference on Sunday, April 25th, via Zoom. And now, our dedicated Torah Fund VP, Roberta Spasia.
Thank you, Gina. Before the program begins, we need to take care of some housekeeping issues. Please be aware that this program is being recorded. If you do not wish for your video image to appear, please turn off your video now. Also, please enter your full name on your screen, especially today. Please stay in speaker view to see the spotlighted guests. Now grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and enjoy. It is my great pleasure to welcome the International President of Women's League for Conservative Judaism and a Pacific Southwest Region member, Debbie Kaner-Goldich.
Good morning. I'm so pleased to be with you this morning. I am proud to say that for the last 7 years, I have been a dues-paying member of 2 sisterhoods in the Pacific Southwest region of Women's League. Through a twist of fate, I spent some time here, and now I live here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I am a proud PSW member. I joined the wonderful sisterhoods of Bethel Congregation in Phoenix and Ort Zion in Scottsdale. They have welcomed me warmly, and some of my Ort Zion and Bethel sisters are here with us today. I am proof that when you move to a new city and you don't know anyone, you should join Sisterhood for an instant welcoming community and fulfilling friendships. Today, during this unique time, I am here to tell you that Women's League is alive and well. We are providing regular programs that allow opportunities for engagement and learning. Those programs are offered on the international, region, and individual sisterhood level. And you, as a member of Women's League, can participate and join those programs all over North America. You can even join the Day of Study in Israel on Tuesday, February 9th. You can study with your Israeli sisters in 4 languages who are being taught by Schechter Seminary scholars. Please look for this program on our weekly newsletter that comes to every member at the beginning of every week. If you are not subscribed, please put your name and email in the chat and I will subscribe you. We reach out to our members with many different types of programs. Just this past month, we offered a Peloton ride, a program on Jews and comedy, a workshop on aging well, and we continue with our Hebrew classes and adult bat mitzvah classes. We are here today to celebrate the Torah Fund campaign of Women's League for Conservative Judaism. You may not realize that the Torah Fund campaign of Women's League for Conservative Judaism is one of the oldest continuous funds for the benefit of Jewish education. Every year, thousands of sisterhood women across North America donate to Torah Fund to ensure scholarships, programming, and bricks and mortar projects for the students here at the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, the Schechter Institute in Jerusalem, the Seminario Latinoamerico in Buenos Aires, JTS in New York, and many other speakers. And many other speakers today will talk about Torah Fund, but I wanted to give you that at the beginning. And so now I thank Gina Resvanpour for inviting me to speak and Roberta Spasher for all her efforts in PSW as Region Torah Fund Vice President. And I want to thank all of you for your warm reception each time I am here in PSW. I feel the love even on Zoom. The Pacific Southwest region of Women's League has a great history of financial support to Torah Fund. Your legacy of philanthropy is well known and inspires the other regions. Today is a day to celebrate the future of Torah Fund. I know PSW region will continue the legacy of financial support to Torah Fund, and as a PSW member, I look forward to sharing that legacy with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I would now like to introduce the International Torah Fund Chair of Women's League for Conservative Judaism, Barbara Ezring.
Thank you, Roberta, and thank you, Gina, also. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be together, biyachad, with you for your Torah Fund Study Day. I am so happy to share this special day with you. Your donations to Torah Fund are so appreciated, especially while the students of our seminaries are studying remotely. They're maintaining their pre-pandemic level of academic excellence. They continue to learn pastoral care skills. They continue to pursue social justice. They study Talmud and Nusach. The seminaries are using more technology than ever, and students continue to pay their tuition. Your donations to the Biyachad General Campaign fund scholarships and programming at the 5 conservative Masorti institutions of higher education: Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, Schechter Institutes in Jerusalem, Seminario Rabbinico Latino Americano in Buenos Aires, and Zacharias Franco College in Potsdam. Your contributions to creating new spaces, our designated gift campaign, will provide at Ziegler the Women's League Institute on Gender Bias and Harassment, and at JTS, the Women's League Study Space in the new undergraduate residence hall. Becoming a member of the Torah Fund Legacy Society allows you, through planned giving, to continue to meet the needs of future generations of our seminary's students. I thank you for your efforts, especially during the last 10 months. Thank you for your patience and for making changes to your usual fundraising methods. Thank you for your generous donations, and thank you for your continuous support of Torah Fund.
Thank you, Barbara. Now I will be presenting the 2019-2020 Torah Fund Campaign Awards of Honor to 22 sisterhoods in our Pacific Southwest region. These sisterhoods have met or exceeded their Torah Fund goal for that year. The 2019-2020 Torah Fund VP, Chair, or her representative will be accepting the award. Adat Ariel Sisterhood, now known as Women of Adat, Valley Village, California, Amy Mazer. Adat Shalom Women's League, Los Angeles, California, Denise Katz. Bethel Women's League, Phoenix, Arizona, Eileen Bloom. As you can see, we're having a little problems with our spotlighting today. The problems with Zoom, but we'll continue on. Congregation Anshe Israel Sisterhood, Tucson, Arizona, Gina Seaman on behalf of Debbie Eisen. Congregation Beth Shalom Sisterhood, Santa Clarita, California, Bertina Joseph.
Okay, can you just stop one? Hi, Bertina. Congratulations. We do have Debbie Eisen on, and so I wanted to spotlight her after Bertina. Some people are not on or have different names, so if we miss you, I apologize, but we can't find you all. So,
Okay, do you want me to go back to Congregation Anshe Israel Sisterhood?
Yes, but I can't find your, I can't find the spotlight button, Karen. She's near the top. She's got a number for Debbie Eisen.
Or phone, right?
Yeah,
But she doesn't have her camera on. That's why she can't.
okay. Okay, great.
Okay, then we'll
Thank
go to Congregation B'nai Israel Sisterhood, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Susan Shadoff. Congregation Ner Tamid of South Bay Sisterhood, Rancho Palos Verdes, California, Mary Mortellaro. Congregation Ort Sion Sisterhood, Scottsdale, Arizona, Phyllis Weinstein. Congregation Tikvat Jacob Beth Torah Sisterhood, Manhattan Beach, California, Natalie Brill. Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center Sisterhood, Pasadena, California, Bobby Sloan. Shomrei Torah Sisterhood, West Hills, California, Jackie Ben Ephraim. Oh, Miriam Carroll, you put on. Supposed to be Jackie Ben Ephraim.
Okay, well,
But
we will
Miriam
find
Carroll was
Jackie.
the Torah Fund Vice President that year.
Okay,
Sinai Temple Sisterhood, Los Angeles, California, Michelle Gabay. Temple Beth Shalom Sisterhood, Long Beach, California, Ida Bobro. Temple Beth Shalom Sisterhood, Whittier, California, Gina Seaman, on behalf of Ann Kanahaley. Temple Beth Shalom of the East Valley Sisterhood, Chandler, Arizona, Sandy Wexler. Temple Ramat Zion Sisterhood, Northwoods, California, Phyllis Fleshler. Temple Shalom of Ontario Sisterhood, Ontario, California, Gina Seaman, on behalf of Carolyn Fisher. Tiferet Israel Sisterhood, San Diego, California, Carolyn Melman. Women's Connection of Congregation Bethel, La Jolla, California, Renee Ravitch. Women's League of Temple Beth Shalom, Las Vegas, Nevada, Lillian Radomski. Women of Aliyah, Woodland Hills, California, Nadine Chestnut. Women of TEC, Thousand Oaks, California, Phyllis Dankberg. Congratulations to all 22 sisterhoods who received these awards today. We are so grateful for your help in making the Torah Fund campaign successful and raising funds that are so critically needed for our rabbis, cantors, and Jewish educators for the future. During our main presentation, which will begin now, the chat will be disabled except for questions for the panel that can only be submitted to the host. Detailed bios of the moderator and panelists can be found in the program that was emailed to you. It is my honor to introduce the moderator of our panel. She is the Executive Director of Women's League for Conservative Judaism. Since 2018, she has proudly served as the first rabbi in this position, Rabbi Ellen S. Wollensfield.
Thank you very much, Roberta. It's wonderful to be with everyone today. I have to say, where I am in New Jersey, it's not morning, it's afternoon, and it's snowing. So I hope that all of you in PSW are staying warmer than we are out in New Jersey. But it's so wonderful to truly put the words of Biyachad together, that we all are together and we get to learn from somebody from each of our seminaries today. It's really wonderful, and I want to thank everyone for being able to be here today. So if we could spotlight our different speakers today, we're going to have a representative from each seminary, which is just wonderful to have. And as they come on, I'm going to just give a very brief description of who they are, because you got the program. You all received it in an email, so you can know who everyone is. Our speaker representing the Jewish Theological Seminary is a dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Naomi Kalish. She is now the Harold and Carol Wolf Director of the Center for Pastoral Education. Good to see you. Regards to your whole family. And previous to being back at JTS, Rabbi Kalish taught clinical pastoral education, which if you speak to any rabbi or rabbinical student, better known as CPE, at New York Presbyterian Hospital. And she's a certified educator and also a board certified chaplain. So Rabbi Kalish, thank you so much for being with us today. Our speaker from the representing the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies is another friend and colleague, Rabbi Patricia Fenton, who I'm happy to say I got to see her in her natural habitat a few years ago as the reference librarian and manager of the public services at the American Jewish University in Los Angeles. They are very lucky to have you there. She is a lecturer at the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies and at AJU's Graduate Center for Jewish Education, and she teaches in the Miller Introduction to Judaism program. And go to the library there and you'll get to see her. So I'm very grateful I was able to see you there. Our next speaker representing the Schechter Institutes in Israel is Rabbi Dr. Reb Mimi Feigelson. She'll be coming on. Our Mishpacha Ruchanit, the spiritual mentor for 16 years at the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies, and now she has that position, the Maspia Ruchanit at the Schechter Institutes in Israel. She teaches Talmud and Hasidic thought there, and she's a spiritual director, senior lecturer in rabbinics and Hasidic thought at Schechter, and she was ordained by Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. And she uses the term Reb as a chain of the Hasidic rabbis. And also about a year ago, I got to see you teaching at the Beit Midrash study hall at the Ziegler Institute. And God willing, next year I'll get to go back and see you there. Where have I not yet gotten to, but God willing, we'll get there. The Seminario Rabbinico Latinoamericano, that's a mouthful. We have with us today Rabbina Marcela Goralnik, and she is coming on shortly, the founding director at the Center for Women, Family, and Spiritual Orientation at the Seminario. She was ordained in 2016 and lectures at the Heschel Institute for Rabbinic Training, both in Mishnah and Livui Ruchani, the pastoral care, and also a practicing family psychologist. And lastly, but not Acharon Chaviv, as we say, the final speaker today will be Rabbi Gisa Ederberg from the Zacharias Frankel College, coming on. Another colleague I get to see about at least once a month at the Rabbinical Assembly meetings, and she is the spiritual advisor at Zacharias Frankel College in Berlin, the founding member and executive VP treasurer of the European region of the Rabbinical Assembly and the General Rabbinical Conference of the Central Council of Jews in Germany. She was ordained at JTS in 1995, and since 2006, is the rabbi of a synagogue in Berlin, and I'm going to apologize, I cannot pronounce, Orenburger Strauss Synagogue. And I was supposed to be at the ordination this year, but we can look forward to that in the future. So we have a few questions today. It's going to be a little bit like if anyone has ever watched a show or been involved with speed dating, where you have a short period of time to answer a question so that other people will have the opportunity to answer as well, because we want to learn about all of our seminaries. So the first question that we have, and I'm going to try to go in this order. So Rabbi Kalish is going to begin similar to how I answered. I introduced you. So Rabbi Kalish will go, then Rabbi Fenton. Then we're going to go to Reb Mimi. That's how you go by your name, yes? We refer to you, okay. And then we're going to go to Rabbina Marcela, and then we're going to go to Rabbi Gisa. So hopefully you remember all that. We have 2 minutes. I apologize, between the 2 and 3 minute mark, I'm going to tell you that your time is up. I'll try to do it as politely as I can. If you happen to hear Hatikva, that's going to be my ringtone for when the time is up. So our first question for all of our panelists today, a description of your seminary. Please tell us about your seminary. What makes you the same or different from the other 4 seminaries? And do you have any programs that are unique to your seminary? So Rabbi Kalish, you'll begin.
Thank you. JTS was founded in 1886. Our new chancellor, Dr. Shuli Rubin Schwartz, has described that JTS throughout its history has played 2 primary functions. It served as a center for excellence in Jewish scholarship, and it's also been a place people have come to foster their religious sensibilities, specifically within Judaism and within conservative Judaism. I imagine that these 2 roles are common across our institutions. At JTS, we train rabbis, cantors, academics, Jewish educators, chaplains, and also undergraduates who will go on to many different professions and often play leading roles as lay leaders. A distinguishing part of the JTS program is that our Center for Pastoral Education, which has already been mentioned, is an accredited center by the Association for Clinical Pastoral Education, which offers training which is highly developed across the country and actually across the world, and provides a credential for people who take this training in hospital chaplaincy, other areas of chaplaincy, and pastoral care.
Fantastic. Thank you. Rabbi Fenton. You just have to unmute.
Thank you. So we try to stay away from comparing ourselves with other seminaries, and I feel quite sure that all of our institutions are truly great. So what I say about Ziegler probably may be true for you guys as well. But what I'm especially proud of at our rabbinical school, excuse me, I have a cough drop in my mouth because it's in the 70s here and I'm having allergies. Sorry, Ellen. Is that we truly are a warm and compassionate community of teachers, students, and staff. We all take care of each other. I'm getting a visit from a student this afternoon. People have sent things, we call and check in on each other. And here at Ziegler, we try very hard to integrate the heart, the mind, and the soul. So we believe that having a high level intellectual program goes along with having a searching soul. And when people apply, we tell them that there are 2 things that we try hard not to do. So, I'm sorry, that we try hard to do. One is to be a school where no one can hide, because we want to know all of our students in their greatness, so we can remind them of their greatness when they forget. And also that if you're a student who needs to, so to speak, color within the lines, we're probably not the place for you, but we have many sister institutions, which may be. This year, I'm particularly proud that our students, on their own initiative, started an organization they call Kehilatenu, our community. And they've organized scholarly events for the whole community and social and supportive events just for the students. Movie nights, spiritual conversation nights. I'm super proud of them. And of course, the most unique thing about our institution is having Rabbi Fenton as the manager of public services and reference at the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. And Reb Mimi. Just have to unmute.
Thank you. First, I want to say how much I miss you all. And some of you, I actually have a picture of the last time we were together in Los Angeles. And it comes up on my screensaver. So some of you I get to actually see every day. It's not the same. I miss you very much. And I'm really grateful for this time to come back and be together. And the pandemic has made us create a situation in which none of us get to fly in. So also we're not, haven't been singled out in any way. I've been home in Yerushalayim for 3.5 years now. Again, parallel to the work I merited to do for 16 years at Ziegler, I'm doing now in Yerushalayim at the Shechter Rabbinical Seminary. And I want to say what I feel is unique is that we're in Yerushalayim. We're in Yerushalayim, we're in Israel, we're dealing with a very diverse student body and an older student body, which means Ashkenazi, Sfaradi. Most of our students are second career students. And we, therefore, our work brings to the forefront different kinds of questions and different kinds of issues to be dealt with that I actually never expected to have to negotiate, such as what does it mean to actually live in a war zone area, and what do our students bring with them into class in that situation. We really work on the diversity of Ashkenazi and Sfaradim and Oriental traditions. So our davening, you never know when you come to daven what tradition you're going to be davening that day, or actually that morning or that afternoon. Every shaliach shlichat tzibur according to their tradition, and that gives us really a very beautiful weave of traditions. That being said, also in many ways, the school is a blueprint for Israeli society and how we can negotiate that mingling and coming together. Shechter also has the challenge of understanding what does Masorti in Israel look like, and how do we give it that special Israeli blend, flavor, and taste? What is our seasoning to the movement in Israel throughout? And there's a special training program, Ashira Tehilot, that trains Shlichei Tzibur, Ashkenazi, Sfaradi, and Contemporary. Our students also have done amazing training with working with the elders and with special needs as well, that I'm very, very proud of them. And every day is a surprise that I never know what to expect when I walk into the Beit Midrash.
Yofi, toda rabba. And Rabina Marcella Gorolnik.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be together today in behalf of the seminario. So what's the seminario? We have a clear vision. We received a delegation from the Women's League. It was a pleasure to be together. I think it was 2 years ago, right? So you've been visiting Argentina, Buenos Aires, and the seminario. Our mission is to strengthen Jewish life in Iberoamerica. We work in more than 20 countries, from Spain to Ushuaia, so all Spanish and Portuguese speaking countries. So in that, I think we are different. We don't work in only one country. And how do we strengthen Jewish life? Through leadership development, creation of content, community building, interreligious dialogue, and of course, Tikkun Olam. I'm going to give just a few examples of what do we do in the seminario. We have a Center for Women, Families, and Spiritual Orientation, Libur Ruhani, that we created 5 years ago, that I lead. And of course, I'm very proud of the center. We are doing great work. We had a broad outreach activity focused on different topics like Jewish study for women. We have also we focus on domestic violence, gender identity, sexual diversity, and mikveh. We have a beautiful mikveh in the seminary, so we use the mikveh as a healing resource. And we have many programs like Manchot Mikveh. One of our perhaps most innovative program in the Women's Center is Arevut, mutual responsibility from Kol Israel Arim Zelazeh. We empower spouses of the rabbis. You know, without the spouses, the rabbis would be nothing, and the community would be nothing. So the spouses of the rabbis are Jewish leaders. So we train them, we meet together, we share common experience. We are from all Latin America, so we meet once a week, once a month online. We also train lay leaders, current lay leaders and future lay leaders. We have a program and a center for lay leadership development. We have a website called Hagim in Spanish. We created full content for all Jewish festivals. And last year we had 3 million views. For us, it's a lot. We are less than 1 million Jews in Latin America, so we are proud of our page. Regarding rabbinical school, we have 3 tracks. Not only the traditional one, that's 4 years and 1 year in Schechter, but also we have 2 more tracks. Catch up, that's for, we cherry pick people all around the region who also have the knowledge and experience and are already working in a pulpit and have the spiritual level, but they don't have a smicha. So we teach them in a catch-up program. It's a different track. And on March, we're starting the new semester, the new year, scholar year, and we are starting a program for second career rabbis, people in their 50s, in their 60s, who want to change career and have a more spiritual life and study Gemara and be a rabbi.
We do have to wrap up.
Yes,
okay.
30 seconds. The Pink Center for Jewish Education, that's a hub for Jewish education. We identify the needs and we find solutions. We have a great partnership with Tali from Schechter, Tali program. We translate culturally and to Spanish and to Portuguese. So most of the schools here in Latin America use Tali Latin American materials. And we have Tali Digital in Spanish. So it's also all the schools can use, before the pandemic, we have all that, to use the materials online. That's it. Thank you.
Hadaraba, thank you. And Rabbi Gisa Ederberg, you remember the question?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be at least virtually together with all of you. I think probably it's the easiest for me to explain what's so different about us because we are the youngest seminary. We just started in 2013. We had 1 ordination in 2017 with 1 person and another ordination, thankfully before the next lockdown here in Germany, so we could do it in real and also virtually with all the overseas guests coming in over the screen. And we did ordain 2 more young rabbis, which means, that the number of Masoti rabbis in Germany has risen by, let's see, depending on your count, 100% or 200% or even 300% by adding 2 more rabbis, right? So, this shows you how new all of this is. And I think that's the most important feature of our seminary. It's all very much pioneering. Our students have an amazing spirit of entrepreneurship. And they are, as they study building their own rabbinate, working, doing internships in different synagogues and communities all over Germany and Europe, and then eventually find their own place. What's also, I think, very special with us is that we have students from all over Germany right now. I think from all over Europe and beyond. Right now, we have 1 student whose mother tongue is German. We have Colombia, France, Spain, UK just got ordained, and beyond that, and it's amazing. So we go back and forth between Hebrew, German, English, Spanish, and sometimes French and Russian. What's also very special, I think, about us is that we work in close cooperation with the Abraham Geiger College, which is the Reform Rabbinical College, and the University of Potsdam, and the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. Now, this is I love that because it means we are connected. We do what we do in relationship. The relationships are obviously very different. First, and maybe most important, the connection to the Ziegler School is that we get our hashgacha, our recognition, especially also within the Masoti world, through the partnership with Ziegler. Rabbi Brett Artsen and Rabbi Cheryl Peretz are also Dean and Vice Dean of Frankel, and we are in very close, our coordinator Sandra Anusevich-Bear is always in very close connection with them. working on the curriculum, deciding day-to-day issues, and building a policy and building our own identity. We do share the space, and I would say about 70% of the classes with the Reform Rabbinical College, which I think is unique. We are not trans-denominational. It's really important for us that we have our Masorti point of view, halachic approach, our halachic standards, and what we expect from our students. But we share space and classes with the Reform colleagues who will be the colleagues our students will be working closely with, and that works very well. Now, the third partner in that is the University of Potsdam, which, because we have fulfilled a very old dream, both of Abraham Geiger and Zachariah Frankel, who always wanted to establish Jewish theology, not only Jewish studies, but Jewish theology as a subject at a German university. And only in 2013, this became true. I'm not going into, not even trying to explain the state religion specialties in Germany, but it's a state university who allows us to do Jewish theology from a denominational point of view. Big topic for another time. This is that's totally fine. This is who we are, and it's just wonderful to be in close connection. Our students spend time at the conservative yeshiva, but also work with Schechter. And I think building relationships amongst the seminaries is one of the big steps we want to take.
Thank you to all. It's hard to think back to 1994 when I was applying to rabbinical school, and I didn't have too many choices. If I was applying to rabbinical school today, I'm not sure where I would apply. And it truly, all our seminaries show that we have Shivim Panim La Torah, that there's 70 faces to the Torah, and depending on where you want, what your niche is, there is a school for you, God willing. So it's really wonderful that we can service so many conservative Masorti Jews today with all of our different seminaries. So our second question, it's going to be the same order that we had before. Truly, it's supposed to be 2 minutes, not 3, so I might actually cut you off at 2 minutes so we can get to all of our questions. So the second question is about the rabbinic needs of your region. What are the specific rabbinic needs of the Jewish community today in the region? So for example, North America, Europe, Latin America, and Israel. How do these needs differ from the past? And how are the students in your seminary being trained to fulfill those needs today? So Rabbi Kalish.
You need to unmute, Rabbi.
Thank you. I'm especially interested in learning from my fellow panelists about this question and what we share as challenges, and also what might be specific to our regions. Also keeping in mind that Rabbi Fenton and I both serve the same region, and even though we're 2,500 miles apart, I feel like North America, we share so much. So we continue, of course, like with the ongoing challenge and mission to train leaders to serve Jews throughout North America and beyond, in finding meaning in Jewish tradition. And I would also say in helping people access Judaism as a resource during times of crisis. Currently, we have many very significant challenges in the current day. JTS, and I assume all of our institutions, prioritizes issues such as racial justice, makes a commitment to gender and sexuality inclusivity, and has really given tremendous thought and consideration for how to engage the divisive times we have been living through in North America. JTS has a center called the Hendel Center for Ethics and Justice, which does additional programming and organizing of events for students to teach in these justice and ethics issues. Our students very much want to be engaged beyond the Jewish community and also beyond conservative Judaism within the Jewish community. And we have the Milstein Center for Interreligious Studies, which helps students be connected. And we see this as our students are telling us also something about the broader Jewish community, the desire to be engaged in oh, sorry, that was my timer. Let me just say very briefly, we also at this time are experiencing in the broader Jewish community, the broader North American community, I imagine the global community, and of course our immediate community, a rise in mental health needs that have been triggered by the pandemic. These needs preceded the pandemic, but have been so intensified by the pandemic. And so this is very much one of the needs we're trying to respond to through the Center for Pastoral Education and the institution as a whole.
Thank you. Rabbi Fenton.
So in addition to some of the things you just said, although we're a program located in Los Angeles, we consider ourselves to be an international program. So we don't see ourselves as catering specifically to the West Coast or even the United States or North America. We've trained a steady stream of students from Europe. At the moment, we have a student from Poland with us. And Ziegler actually trained the chief rabbi of Uganda. And we hope to have, when travel becomes easier, et cetera, we have actually several African rabbinical students waiting to join us. And we've even had Israeli students come here, which I particularly like. I myself am a JTS grad and did my time at wonderful year at Schechter. And now here I am at Ziegler. So we try to keep an international perspective with the idea that Jews are a worldwide people and our movement, Conservative Masorti, has something to teach and to offer everyone. One of the things that's different in the past for us is that students no longer assume that their only career as rabbis will be in the pulpit. So our rabbis serve in a variety of institutions, and I'm sure like the rest of our schools, they create their own institutions as well, sometimes starting here and sometimes after they leave us, and we train them for all of that.
Thank you. Reb Mimi.
Wow. I just want to sit and listen. So I'll say a few things that I've to share. Israel is, on the one hand, yes, we also have students from the seminario. I have students that wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be in class, or they're still davening shacharit when we're actually davening mincha. And we've succeeded in making this work as well. And it's actually very exciting to have those different possibilities of being in Vienna at times and in Buenos Aires in the same class. And I've also been invited to teach for Frankel. So I feel like I have a flavor of multiple schools. Israel is the separation of state and state and church, as we would say, or state and Rabbanut in Israel is different than outside of Israel. And that also evokes challenges and serious challenges for our students in terms of their communities that they create. And what does it mean to be an alternative, a serious and significant religious voice and alternative in Israel to what is considered to be Rabbanut authority, whether it's weddings, whether it's divorce, whether it's mikvah, whether it's conversion, as you know. So the political piece the political piece is very present, also in our work with our students, and also in pushing them, I want to say, to find and create their unique voice and find their ways to enter into Israeli society and to offer options that maybe the Israeli community wasn't even aware of, that they have a voice and have a say, and things can look and be and experience differently. And I'm actually very proud of my students as how they go out into the Israeli communities and create these alternatives. Also, the question of interfaith dialogue is very core and core for our students. We're close. We all live together and very close. And 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear the muazzin. And I don't live in an Arab community or in a Muslim community at all. And yet I, at 5 o'clock in the morning, hear the muazzin, which is far. So therefore, I want to say the interfaith dialogue is core, offering an alternative for what a significant religious life and tradition can be. And also, our communities are organized around, I want to say, army service, and for example, and understanding what does it mean to have a community in which a Rav, Rabbah, they are the core and the foundation of the community, and it evolves around them. What does that look like? That's also a gift that our students are meriting to entertain and to actually go out and create these possibilities and create their own communities. And that's been quite amazing to watch them. I want to say also, we're women here. And I want to say Israel is still, I think, somewhat challenged in understanding what female rabbis are. I have to say that the Masorti movement has really brought such a plethora and variety of amazing women, which is very exciting to see and to experience, and the communities are embracing them. Yet I want to say I still think that we're challenged, and there's work there that needs to be done.
Adar, Rabina Marcella.
Okay, I will mention only 3 needs that also are challenges, capillarity, multitasking, and youth. So capillarity, we need to reach every shul wherever he or she lives. Multitasking, we need to every shul in the pew, and of course every clergy, rabbi, student rabbi, and cantor should be able to do what is needed to be done. Our region is so huge, and we have these small cities with less than 200 Jews, so we cannot afford to send 2, 3, 4 people for different things. We have to send one clergy that can know and would be able to do what is needed. And then I have to mention youngsters. So we need more. I think we need more programs to reach our youth, to give them places where they can learn, celebrate, and pray together. We are starting a Beit Midrash online for the youth this year. And I have to say this because when I share my questions with my daughter, 20 years old daughter, and she said, Mom, you have to talk about us. We don't have in the Masorti movement a lot of programs, and many of my friends are going to the other movements because they offer some other programs. So it's a shame, and we should have more. So the unique training that we give our students, not only rabbinical students, but mainly the rabbinical students in Klei Kodesh, of course, Gemara, Torah, but also Sofrut, Gittin, how to write a divorce field, and informal and informal education also. Many of our rabbis or student rabbis, I have to say that in the seminario, all the students, the student rabbis, already work in a pulpit, in a community, so are in charge of communities. They don't only study, so sometimes they teach in the local school, Jewish school, and sometimes they are headmasters. So we teach them formal and informal education, and of course, Libur Ruhani. This year, chaplaincy and pastoral care. This year, we've focused in Tikkun Midot, in Musar, in teaching Musar, a program for rabbinical students. I teach in the rabbinical school, and we realized that we cannot help to heal others if we cannot take care of ourselves and also of each other. We try to build a team. That's the last word. We try to focus on building a team with the student rabbis for the future.
Thank you. My new name for you, Acharon Chaviv.
Very nice. Well, I think listening to my 4 friends and colleagues, lots of the rabbinic needs are the same, right? The young people are so interconnected that they don't care, and the pandemic brings that out even more if a teacher sits in Berlin, in France, in Israel, or in the United States. And the culture also develops together. Some of the more specific needs, I think, is that we are still so much building the movement. And people do not expect our kinds of rabbis. I have been in Germany since I was ordained in 2002. And all the time I hear, oh, we need a rabbi. Actually, I never met a rabbi like you. And we need a rabbi just like you, only the rabbi should be male. So let's not go into the gender issue. I'll say something about that in a second. But it is indeed having rabbis whom you can talk to on an eye-to-eye level on the one hand, and who are committed to halakha and Jewish tradition is something very new. Many congregations here have a rabbi who does totally not speak their own language. Not only they don't speak German, but they also do not speak on an eye-to-eye level, but they, come with a very super traditional background, and then also are challenged by their communities. I mean, we also know these challenges of people being less observant than the rabbi, but we train our rabbis, and all our seminaries train the rabbis to have an answer to that and increase and encourage observance, and not portray some kind of shtetl Judaism, which has nothing to do with their reality. This is, on the flip side, it leads to people questioning, well, are you a real rabbi? Because, and here comes obviously also the gender issue in, real rabbis have black hats and beards, right? And I'm always like, no way of helping with that piece of the image. So I feel that many of our congregations do not really know what rabbinic needs they have. They want a rabbi, and then they get a rabbi, and if the rabbi starts working and raising her voice and talking about education and talking about commitment, they don't know how to deal with that. They somehow seem to expect something more like a token rabbi, and that's a big issue. And then we still are very much an immigrant Jewish community with lots of immigrants from the former Soviet Union who are very busy in building their own lives and, not very committed to the Jewish community, which means that lots of the public representation also falls on our rabbis. With the city, obviously in an interreligious context. And this is something which I am very proud of. We have very close connections, also especially to the Muslim community. And these are relationships with which we build, both of us being minority religions and both of us having a halakha or sharia, or however you want to call it, a religious lifestyle. And the coalitions there are really fascinating and inspiring.
Toda rabba. All of you are so inspiring. It really shows that in yonder years, in the past, the rabbis were often, or our clergy were taught in the ivory tower and expected to just go into congregations. And now we're not taught in the ivory tower. We're taught biyachad, together with Amcha, the people you're going to serve, and Amcha's neighbors. And we're there to do so many different tasks. It's just extremely inspiring. Our third question today: the pandemic influence on the seminary teaching. It's almost a year. How does the world we live in today, due to the pandemic, influence or change the teaching of the students in your seminary to prepare them for the future, the possible future, and the unknown future as well? So I'm going in the same order. So Rabbi Naomi Kalish, you get to start.
Okay, thank you. So JTS, as probably all other academic institutions across North America and across the world, shifted to online learning when the pandemic hit New York City. And I know this took place at different points for different communities. I want to focus on the program I teach because it had a few additional pieces which actually relate to what you, Rabbi Wollensfields, were just mentioning about how we train people not solely in the ivory tower, so to speak, but in the community through internships. And with the pastoral education program, we train people in an action reflection model of learning, meaning that they're doing the internship while we train them. So when the pandemic hit, we were 3/4 of the way through our internship program during the academic year and immediately had to shift, which meant not only moving the classroom to an online platform, but deciding what we were going to do about the pastoral caregiving, which our students had been providing in hospice settings, nursing home, elder care, prison and prison reentry. Those were our areas of focus last year. And we, along with the chaplaincy field, made this very quick shift to what's now being called telechaplaincy, providing care over the telephone and through video conferencing. And just being fully transparent, it was very stressful because none of our institutions were equipped. None of them had the infrastructures, even at times the technology to do a complete shift. But we thankfully were able to partner with many institutions who were able to make this shift with us and develop this program pretty quickly. And over the summer, we held our entire summer internship in a telechaplaincy model, reaching hundreds of people throughout New York City who both came from Jewish as well as other faith backgrounds to provide support. And it just made me feel very proud of the hard work that so many people put in, that we were able to reach people during this difficult time. For the future, I think we'll go back to in-person when we can, but we've developed skills and, like I was saying, infrastructure and methods for reaching people that we probably weren't reaching before and should have been. Thank you.
Rabbi Patricia Fenton. And then I think I don't need to introduce all of you. You know what order you're going in now.
So we also have been completely online, and all of our activities will remain online as long as the local authorities require that. So, you know, like everybody, I teach Talmud and I teach Bible. I think for me personally, the most challenging was I teach an Aramaic intensive. And luckily I got this device that lets me write on it. And it's almost like being able to write on a whiteboard or a blackboard. And that's been a real blessing, because truthfully, it is hard to teach grammar without a board. But a larger question I think that we're starting to look at now is, you know, what has this pandemic taught us, not only about Jewish life, but human life in general? And how are we connecting now that we might be able to carry into the future in order to strengthen our connections between each other? And I just, as an example, one of the things that we've been able to do, and I'm sure this is true again of all of you, and we're doing it today, is that we've been able to invite scholars to teach us and to mentor us. And I raise Reb Mimi as a prime example of that, so that even though you are in Yerushalayim, you have been here with us, and that's just been remarkable for us. I do a lot of conversions. I'm very active in the Beit Din here. And we've been doing our conversions, the Beit Din portion of our conversions, online from the beginning. Now, our mikveh, we also have a beautiful mikveh on campus, and which unfortunately is closed at the moment. But the second we get the okay from the local health authorities, that will open again. And we've got dozens of people waiting to get into the mikveh and finish joining the Jewish people. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Reb Mimi, you're good.
Yeah. So the few things that I can add to what is really, I think, in many ways we share this question, we share more than others. I mean, the nuances are there, but I mean, for me, challenges have been, what does it mean to be the spiritual mentor of a rabbinical seminary when there are students that this is their first year, and this is the first time I'm getting to meet them as on screen? Or what does it mean for rabbinical students who have waited for and gone through evolutions in their life, have waited to come to rabbinical seminary, and there isn't a Bet Midrash, and they're in their homes, and then how do they negotiate years of expectancy, and then with what actually they are experiencing? Now, this actually it can also be reframed as an opportunity, as a learning opportunity. And how can they use this now in their rabbinate, having experienced these kinds of experiences? So I think some of the work that we're asked to do is to reframe their experiences and to offer the challenges as truly as growing opportunities. And what does it mean to create intimacy and relationship with congregants when, again, we can't actually have those home visits and we actually don't have Kabbalat Shabbat in the community? I want to say that those of our students that are more technologically savvy than others have been amazing in terms of sharing. I feel that the quality of sharing of the communal work in the communities has been heightened because everyone is trying to create something which has never been before. And then as soon as something works, immediately there's a sharing of it. So I also want to say that there's Torah that moves itself from community to community in ways which I think is unique for our time. I'll also say that the park across the street from my home has become my office, and I will meet students there. But again, what does that mean that all of a sudden our homes, I mean, I have the blessing now of having you all in my home, in my study, and yet at the same time, the questions of private and public, I think, have been core questions. And for the rabbi, the questions of private and public is a core question, no matter what their position is, and how to negotiate public and private. In the pandemic, our private and our public have been blended in ways that really sharpen and heighten these kinds of questions of boundaries and of calling and of availability and of self-care and of family care. I think that actually the pandemic has offered a lot of questions and a lot of ways of observing these issues that will then be part of their life as they move forward and continue to move on into their specific rabbinate.
Okay, so I also agree, Mimi, about the private and public issue. I remember when the pandemic started, I had to phone. I offered the students in the rabbinical school, in my Libur Ruhani class, pastoral care, if they wanted to talk to me by phone. And then I realized I had to talk with them. It is not going to be only an option to a possibility, open a possibility, but I send them a WhatsApp. I can talk now to, can you talk? And I talk with almost every student, the 20 students, almost an hour. It was so, so important because it was impossible to share feelings and things in the Libur Ruhani class. And then they said, what I'm doing, the students said, what I'm going to do with this, because I cannot see you in the seminario, in the hallway, or drink a coffee or talk with you. So we began talking by phone, almost in the crisis, the worst month here, almost twice a month. It was we had to reinvent things. So the seminario has grown several times in the last few years, numbers of students and programs. A few years ago, the only option was to study face-to-face in the seminario in Buenos Aires. It doesn't matter if you were from Chile or El Salvador, you had to come to Buenos Aires. Since 5 years ago, we operated blended. We have students in Buenos Aires and students in another countries. So when the pandemic started in Buenos Aires in March, it was the beginning of the school year, and we were already ready to close the building. It was sad, but we had to do it. And then everything was online. So in a way, it was fair for everybody. So everybody was online. Not half of the, I teach Mishnah, half of my students were there, and half of the students were online from El Salvador, Chile, Uruguay, but we cannot do Hebruta together, study together. But with everybody online, for example, we can do Hebruta with breakout rooms. So technology helped to reinvent the class. It was crazy to do Hebruta with people from different parts of the world, but it was difficult, but it was also great. Okay.
Well, I think this really shows how much we are all together in the same situation. Even though I very much like this picture of saying we are in the same ocean, in the same storm, but not on the same boats, because some of us have these larger, more stable boats, and some are just holding on to a log of wood or something. So I think that's an important point. But a lot of what has been said obviously is also true for us. What we've been trying to do is to look not only into what we lose through going online, but also trying to see what can we win. And one of the big wins, which we already heard also, is to have really teachers from all over the world. Usually we would fly them in and then have intensive seminars. This time now you can do like a one class and have much more of a variety of teachers. I think also what the students see is halacha in the making, much more than in any other opportunity, because there are the tshuvot are written. We had to debate, what do we do about shachrit, online tefillah, praying, do we count a minyan, do we not count a minyan, what do we do about Kaddish, and all these questions. I'm in charge of tefillah, and I decided to really do this together with the students and not to oppose. Very often I would say, this is my halachic opinion and this is how we do it. But this time I really wanted them to be much more involved in the halachic decision making. And I think that's really was a great experience also for the students. One of the big questions obviously is, what of all the pandemic novelties, innovations are here to stay, and what's going to go away? How are we going to get back to, on the one hand, obviously we'll do many more things virtually like this one. I mean, you wouldn't have flown us all in to be there for this wonderful, wonderful event. So this is a really a win situation. But to juggle, and I hear many of my students saying that has also been hard. We have been meeting in person in the summer. We had there was a relaxed time where we really could do that until the ordination even, which was wonderful. What was an additional burden for two of our students, which you might not so much be aware of, there was last year, Yom Kippur, there was an attack on a synagogue in Germany, and two of our students were in that synagogue at that time, because there was a group of young Berlin people going to Davka, that community. So they have been struggling both with the stress of the pandemic and going through the trial. I mean, the trial has ended a couple of, so they went to testify and back and forth and everything. So the stress level has been very high, and to deal with that, also the private and public phases of what you're doing has been really important. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all so inspirational, and much of what you've been speaking about, we as an organization, Women's League for Conservative Judaism, has really been facing as well. When we started we closed our New York offices to begin working remotely, which we're working even more on Purim. And then on March 15th, when Margie Miller was president, we said, what are we going to do? And a few other members as well, Ellen Bresnick, and we said, you know what, let's get together every day to study Psalms and to say Kaddish. And who knew on March 15th that we'd be still doing it today? We finished all the Psalms. Now we study Pirkei Avot, and it gives somebody who's saying Kaddish, no matter if they're a member of Women's League or not, an opportunity to say Kaddish together, to check in. We have many women today on this call that, for sure, as Rabbi Gisa said, that we wouldn't have been flown in. But with our PSW, it's so wonderful to be able to share my second PSW event with all of you, because we are on virtual. And I looked across of the 180 plus women here that I think we have every region, all the 13 regions who are representing today, which pre-pandemic, this wouldn't have happened. So it's really wonderful. So we reach our fourth question, which is similar to what I just said, how we might be physically apart, but I think we're even more biyachad, more together, because we can jump on these virtual events that we have. So our fourth question, bringing people together on a community, region, and global level. What are you doing in your communities to bring people together? Now, many people don't like the computer, so think about that. What can we do as members of the conservative Masorti movement to unite together to feel that we're all one global Jewish community? So I'm going to start in the same order, and you know the order at this point, so you can begin.
Well, I think it's already been said and still goes without saying that this event is an extraordinary example of what we can do, the creation of something new and the formation of new relationships and connections. So I really just express my gratitude for being part of this. I'd like to just make a couple comments that build on many of the pieces that have been said by everyone on the panel. The first step in responding to this pandemic in many ways was building a new infrastructure, like literally figuring out the technology and figuring out the halachic questions. You know, sometimes I've talked about we not only have experienced loss, we've also experienced the loss of our grieving methods. You know, so people have been experiencing obviously loss through the deaths of loved ones, the many other kinds of loss of going to school, loss of trips to Israel, so much loss, and the way we would cope with those losses through Shiva or through even just like a loved one in the hospital, we would visit them, or if we were ill, we would be visited. All of that had to be rebuilt. And so the first step was dealing with those technical aspects. What we've been focusing, and some of what I've been focusing on and thinking about is once we have new structures in place, how are people experiencing those structures? You know, like you've probably all experienced this. Some people will go to a Zoom Shiva and they'll say, that was so powerful, that was so beautiful, like it served its function to help them grieve. And then another person goes to it and says, that just wasn't Shiva, that didn't do it. So that second question of what's the emotional, spiritual, religious experience, and then how do we support people in whatever their feeling is, because their feeling is their feeling, you know, their feeling is valid. And then what do we learn from it? So we've probably all heard the expression Zoom fatigue. And so I'll say actually one thing JTS did this semester is declare 3 days of the academic semester as Zoom-free days. So we're renegotiating how to be connected and also how to be separate, how to try to be connected in ways in which we can feel heard and seen and known, which are, I think, existential needs that people have. And then also how to give ourselves a break also in order to promote a certain kind of health. Thanks.
So I have a lot of the same thing to say. I do want to add that I think as a nation so far, we're starting to pay attention to COVID grief. People who've lost people, which I certainly have to COVID. And but that one of the things we will face as individuals and as Jewish communities and as larger communities is that there is so much ungrieved grief now that we're holding. And we really, I do want us to start dealing with how we might develop rituals I'm not really sure what to do. I turn to ritual because that's what I miss. But anyway, back to the other part of the question. Yes, so I teach in the Introduction to Judaism program. Over the years, we've had 15,000 students, 5,000 new Jews. And one of our challenges is, or for me, I like my students to become friends with each other and to go to synagogue together and to bake challah together. So getting them to do that in an online environment takes more time and more focus. However, our newest class in the Introduction to Judaism program has 92 students from 17 different states and 10 different countries. I mean, I'll tell you confidentially, we had a student in Saudi Arabia in one of our classes. I mean, it's been, so that has, I'm getting goosebumps. That's just been remarkable for me. And when I teach it every week, I'm so energized, you know, Zoom fatigue or not. And our university has the Biyachad Together online program of classes and virtual tours and book talks and cooking and you name it. We've had over 80,000 participants. So I think we are coming together as a global community. I mean, the Rabbinical Assembly, Women's League, we're getting fabulous, fabulous programming. I have, as a member of a conservative shul, I'm a member of Valley Beth Shalom here in Los Angeles, and I'm getting just as a member, not as, you know, just as a regular Jew in the pew. I'm getting periodic phone calls from people at the synagogue just checking up on me. So, you know, we go from 80,000 people coming together for AJU programming to one person calling Pat Fenton just to make sure that I'm okay. So this is good. This is good.
It's actually very strengthening to hear each other. And so I only have a few things that I'd like to add, and that is, one is Kabbalat Shabbat, 5 Kabbalat Shabbat and for 1 Shabbat. It used to be that we went to shul, wherever we went to Beit Knesset, that's where we went to Beit Knesset. And now the communities are spreading out the timing of Kabbalat Shabbat, for example, so that you can actually be at different Kabbalat Shabbat and really have experiences that otherwise one would not have. So I want to say, I think a lot of the work for me is about actually focusing on places that we can actually claim ownership and empowerment. So for one, for example, is this question of Kabbalat Shabbat and Tefillot, that now all of a sudden we actually have access to each other in ways that we didn't have access. And that actually is a gift to what Zoom has to offer. Or to be honest, I could be at a bar mitzvah in the States because it was Shabbat was over in Yerushalayim, where so students of mine that in the past there was no way in the world that I would have been able to be with, now there are ways. So I want to say that there are also ways of asking ourselves, how do we take advantage of what this medium has offered, and how do we actually experience the world as much smaller? And there's also a question for me of normalization of aloneness, normalization of experiences of limitations of mobility, where now in some way there has been, lahavdil from avelut, but there's been a way in which we now share aloneness and limitations of mobility that aren't connected to our marital status or to our physical ability. And I hope and I pray that that actually opens the conversations around these topics, open up a sensitivity and an understanding that will lead us far beyond the pandemic itself. And I also want to join Rabbi Fenton in terms of rituals. I'm actually very connected to questions about mourning and what will reclaiming a day of Shiva after the pandemic is over. For those, for example, who have felt that they did not receive the Shiva that they needed to receive, we know that if bones are moved, the mourners will mourn the day of the reinterment. What would it look like for a calling of recognizing within the communities a day of Shiva for the households, for the families, for the communities in which the Zoom Shiva was actually not sufficient? I also want to say it's an invitation to really reclaim the uniqueness of what our tradition can offer, and to bring our students, our rabbinical students, into these dialogues and into these challenges. There is no better school than the school of life, and they have been given, right, really an advanced class before they actually stepped into the Beit Midrash.
Okay, so I share many, almost every of the things you've said before. Regarding COVID grief, since last year, before the pandemic, we, in the Libur Ruhani classes, we brought experts on grief, and we began to talk about what do the rabbinical students that go to the cemetery to bury their own synagogue member each week for almost a year, 2 years, 3 years, and how do they feel? If what are their feelings? What are their thoughts? And many of them said that it was the first time that they had a space to share these kind of things, because everybody is coping alone with this. So it was very interesting. One of the youngest students, he was 20, he said, I turned from being a son and my mother forbidding me to go to the cemetery to being a rabbinical student and go to the cemetery as a rabbinical student. So it wasn't easy this year. With the COVID, everything was more necessary than ever to share this common experience. So regarding the question, in the local level, we empower local communities through training of Clay College, training local resources online, and sending, for example, the tally materials for the schools. And in a regional level, as we work in all the Latin America, and for example, I can share with you one program that was Open Mikveh 2 years ago. We, in the Women's Center, we invited all the mikvaot to open the same day to celebrate Women's Day. And we share every women in Latin America went to the mikveh the same day. It was a wonderful experience. And so this year, the problem was we could not do any mikveh programs. So we had to, I've turned to Tikkun Olam programs to be prepared for Rosh Hashanah, for Yamim Noraim. And it worked. We have to reinvent the programs, but it was also very fulfilling. And so we have to think, I think we have to share programs and resources to try to work together more. Thank you.
Well, let me start with one kind of paradoxical thing we did in order to bring our community together. For the first time ever, and the synagogue was founded in 1998, we sent out a letter via regular mail. We've done everything over email. Since we are part of the overall Berlin Jewish community, you know, they get a big newsletter in the mail, etc. And we never send out mail because our people are fine with email and, you know, the cost and the logistics, etc. This year for Tu B'Shvat, we sent a real letter with a beautiful coloring page of our synagogue and obviously some seeds for people to plant at home. So I think that's kind of a paradoxical thing. We are moving, as the more we are moving our life online, the more we need to see where are the real meeting points. And I hear now in the newsletter we are sending out, we have more and more international aspects of, you know, you can join a Zoom meeting there, you can join a conference here. And people then go and bring that back to the local community. And I think that's one of the big pieces. What we are dearly, dearly missing, usually our community, our synagogue vibrates with visitors from abroad, Americans, South Americans, Israelis, and obviously none of that is taking place now. But having other rabbis teach in our Kabbalat Shabbat, you know, while it was, how can I say that? When it was, when we did Kabbalat Shabbat with the Shiur, we would bring in the Americans because for them it's early, and now we are doing a Havdalah. So now we are inviting the Israelis because for them it works time-wise, is one of the big steps we are doing. What I think, Rabbi Alan, if I take the question a little bit more into getting our movement together. That was part of what you asked. I think exploring, listening to each other, where we are the same and where we are different, and where our experiences are so different between the different countries, and reading that as something amazing and enriching, you know, like listening to what happens in Uganda or what happens in LA or in Israel. For my congregation, it's just this huge wow. And I hope that during the pandemic and all the virtual things we're doing, we will learn more of that and keep sharing and yeah, and get closer together.
Yasher kochachen to all of you. This was just so incredible. Toda rabah, and thank you so much for your preparation, for keeping in the time limits, to being so thorough, for your credible insights. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody. This was incredibly inspiring and encouraging. So much food for thought. I hope all of you had a book in front of you to write down notes like I did, or a piece of paper. And if you didn't write down the notes now, it's being recorded, so you can do that. This week is Parshat Yitro, the giving of the Torah and Matan Torah. And they say revelation didn't just happen at that one time. Revelation continuously happens. And truly today, listening to my 5 incredible colleagues here speaking, this was our revelation, how we are transmitting and transforming Torah for our communities, for ourselves, for each other, for the future of the conservative Masorti movement. This was Matan Torah right here. We couldn't have picked a better week to have this discussion, to learn about our different seminaries. It was just so awe-inspiring. I want to thank everyone for organizing this. And Roberta, thank you for really thinking through all the questions that I had asked. It's truly Roberta and her committee who came up with a lot of the questions, and just thank you so much. But we do have a few more questions, because Renee Ravitch got some questions in the chat. So Renee, we're all good with time too. So I'm very impressed by that. So toda rabah.
Well, thank you very much. This has been interesting. I've gotten a few comments in the chat, but I think most people were just so engrossed in what you were saying that they didn't say very much there. But I did get a few questions. The thought of gender was brought up. And so the very simple question, what is the gender makeup of the schools, and is it different in different parts of the world? So do you want to go in the same order, or do you want to just just jump in? It's Reb Mimi, you look surprised. Are you muted? Yes.
I'm not surprised. I think for me, I wonder, as being the first female Orthodox rabbi that was ordained after the Shoah, and people ask that question about gender, and I say, I pray for the day that I won't be an issue and I won't be a question, you won't talk about me. So I think that's also, like, my response was about for us, right? I mean, on the one hand, there is a unique voice that we carry, and it's important to acknowledge it. And at the same time, like, I don't think until this moment, I paused to ask myself that question. I think of my students, and I don't think in that way. Actually, there are a lot of, I want to say this year, I want to say that we're almost 50-50 or 60-40 in terms of the women. Yeah, I think it's, for me, a question at this point, it's more a question of like where people's voices are coming through and what are the issues that they bring to the learning, versus the gender question. That was my response, and yes, and I think there's still work to do. I was the one who actually brought up the gender issue in terms of being out in the community and what does that look like. That's also true. So I want to say, like, I feel that we definitely need to continue to support each other as female rabbis and a community of women.
And I think the question also came up because Rabbi Giza mentioned what people expected the rabbi to be.
Yes.
With the payas and the black hat, and does everybody else, are you all about 50-50?
We currently have 7 students, 4 female, 3 male. but if we count the 3 graduates in, then we're exactly 5 and 5. So
Okay.
yes, 50-50. And this is even, as I said before, the job perspectives in Germany and in Europe at the moment are still much better for the male students, but it does not hinder the women of saying, you know, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, I'm going for it, and then let's see what's coming out of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just add, I don't have the specific data for the rabbinical school or also JTS as a whole with the cantorial school and other schools. But I will say, I do think this question of the work of moving toward greater gender equality continues. And so is very much an issue that comes up. And also at JTS, there's a strong value and priority on the LGBT inclusivity. And so there's also, so beyond the kind of like male, female binary, also being, having space for students to claim the pronouns that they use. And so there's been much greater emphasis on those issues. And we have seen, like through the internships, that there have been significant issues of gender come up in terms of like when our students provide, you know, are in rabbinic interns or pastoral care interns, how were they received? And then that also sometimes has to do with gender assumptions and also sometimes religious assumptions too. They say they're the chaplain and then somebody assumes they're a Christian chaplain, a male Christian chaplain. So those are areas of continued emphasis at JTS.
So what you're saying, there's still work to be done.
Yes.
Okay, I have received several questions about conversions. First of all, we heard Rabbi Marcella and Rabbi Pat say that there were mikvot at their seminaries. Do all the seminaries have a mikvah on campus? Okay, JTS does a nod of the head or a shake of the head is fine. Okay, so they're the only two, and I've been fortunate enough to be at each of those mikvahs. And then conversion what is the status of conversions in Latin America and Germany? And are the converts, people that are in the midst of conversion able to go to the ocean and instead of the mikvah? So
So I did shake my head because the seminary does not have a mikvah, but the shul does. So we do have our own mikvah at the synagogue, and some of the rabbinical students have been teaching. Well, more bar bat mitzvah students at the shul. Sometimes, if we need an English tutor because somebody wants to convert and does not speak German and cannot join the class, then rabbinical students have done that. We have actually been at the lake due to the pandemic once. We had a Beit Din where we felt like, we still can do the Beit Din in presence, but we felt we did not want to have everybody go through the same mikveh. So we just really got into cars and did it at the lake in the summer, which was a very unique, very beautiful experience. Our conversions are recognized within the German Jewish community, with some limitations amongst the Orthodox, but we do it through the Central Council of Jews in Germany, which is kind of the overall umbrella organization for all Jewish communities. And again, together with the Reform movement, the Reform have accepted our standards in terms of mikvah and tvila, immersion, so we cooperate closely with them.
okay, and
I can tell that we have a mikveh in the seminario. We built it again these past few years, and we are committed to open new mikvaot in the region. We've already opened 5 more. We've counsel and coach the local communities in Argentina and in Uruguay also. And I travel a lot before the pandemic. I used to travel to do mikveh workshop and to train the local person responsible for the mikveh in the country. That usually is a spouse of a rabbi or one of the graduates of our program for Balaniot for mikveh attendance and Manchot mikveh. And I'm really committed. I love working in this. I've already worked many years in conversion in the seminario, and I started bringing people to the mikveh many years ago, and I love it. I think we have to work more in this kind of, and women enjoy going to the mikveh, and it's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you. We also had a question about how did the surrounding communities respond to the Jewish seminary in Germany? But I think there's also, that leads to the question about anti-Semitism, which has been a concern recently. So how do we, what is being done at the schools to address that?
So actually, the Frankel College only exists thanks to the growing Muslim community in Germany. It's a very, very interesting story. This is, now I need to go a little bit into the religion and state, the different separation of religion and state in Germany. The German state holds that there are things which a community needs, but the state is not supposed to do. But therefore they enable the communities to do that. For example, they fund our Masorti primary school to 60%, and the nursery school at about 90% of the real costs. But we are totally autonomous in terms of how we teach, etc. They just control like hygiene and teacher-student ratio, etc. And we are fine with that. Not going there for the moment. I know it's difficult for Americans to get that picture. Part of that picture is that Protestant and Catholic theology, clergy training, has always taken place at state universities. With a practical 2-year internship kind of afterwards run by the churches. Now, with the growing Muslim community, the need was felt very much that we need to have European trained imams, European trained teachers of Muslim religion. Religion is taught at state schools by denominations, right? So, and therefore the government did a immense research into the structure of religious communities and the structure of clergy education, etc. And also in that study, which was done for the Muslim community mostly, but did cover Catholic and Protestant, which are the two major denominations. We don't have so many free churches. There was kind of a couple of paragraphs about the Jewish community and that there is a seminary, there is an institution, an academic institution run by the Central Council of Jews in Germany that never got around to training rabbis. Because rabbis, went abroad, like I went to Schechter, others went to JTS and came back, etc. And then one of the big machers within the Jewish community saw that and took this amazing opportunity that the study said, actually, all the religions need to have a state university trained clergy. And that's how we came about. So the support for Frankel from both the Muslim and the Catholic and the Protestant community has been amazing, just amazing.
Okay, anybody else want to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to respond. I think this is such an important question. And I actually live in New Jersey, just a couple miles from where the Jersey City shooting took place a year and a half ago. So I think actually my home community was more directly affected, though I think we're all shaken up by the ripple effects. I read a really, I'd say like very saddening article last week or the week before about the Capitol, the riot at the Capitol, which is that many of the interns and assistants in the Capitol have grown up in this era of school shootings and lockdown drills, and very sadly were very well prepared for how to respond to the attack. So when I think about our rabbinical students, of course, and our other students as well, of course, they span a wide spectrum in age, though many of them are in an age group in which they have grown up in a post 9/11 era. They've grown up in the school shooting era and the lockdown era. And so I'd say with that, they've also grown up during a time period which has seen an increase in anti-Semitism. So I don't know if I think there's indirect ways we respond to that as well as just ways we embody that reality. One of the ways in which we help students, but they also, by their own initiative, respond is through different types of social activism and social justice work in which they partner and they connect with multi-faith organizations. And so I find that it's a much more politically active and socially active student body than when I was in rabbinical school in the 1990s. And so I think that's one way they respond is both within the Jewish community, but also making partnerships with like-minded people from across the broader community.
Thank you. That's a very positive way of looking at it. How are we on time, Rabbi?
I think we have a few more minutes. This was to wrap up in about 9 minutes, so I think we have time for a few more questions.
Okay. What is now I know that not all of the seminaries have a school of education, but those that do, what is the role and interaction and collegiality of students studying in your schools of education with the rabbinic students? So, okay, Reb Mimi?
At Schechter, as the rabbinical seminary, Shem Schechter, is connected to the Schechter Institute, which also has programs of Jewish leadership and communal leadership. And some of our classes are combined with the other organizations that are part of the Schechter Institute. So some students will actually come for tefillot, which sometimes actually is a really entry into rabbinical school. Right, they'll do their MA at Schechter and then they'll join us because the prerequisite to being accepted to our program, it's a 3-year program, is an MA. So quite often we'll find students that start out at Schechter and doing their MA in communal leadership, and then they continue on to the rabbinical seminary.
Okay. Rabbi Naomi?
Yeah, I would say at JTS, it's very similar to how Mimi described her situation. We have a lot of students sitting in class together, and sometimes enrollment in one program will inspire enrollment in the other. All rabbinical students at JTS need to earn a master's degree, and so some will do rabbinical school and the master's in education, or they do it in something like Bible or Talmud, or they can also do a certificate in pastoral care. But so there's a good element of meeting in the classroom.
And our school has 2 master's degrees in Jewish education, one for working professionals and one for people who are able to be full-time students. We also have a relatively new program of a master's degree in early childhood education, which has been very, very popular. And so our students take each program takes classes in the other program if they wish. And rabbinicals, a lot of the rabbinical students take classes in the School of Education and get the certificate, either get the master's degree or get a certificate in Jewish education.
Thank you. And I have one question for Rabbi Marcella, and it's about Latin America. I wrote down LA and it didn't make sense, and I remember not Los Angeles, Latin America. So the question is, how far does Seminario reach out in South America? Do you have connections in every country or just some of the countries? And are most of the Jews in South America, the people that fled from Europe in the 30s and 40s? So most of them have European backgrounds?
It's a very interesting question. We have 110 graduate rabbis so far. So, and I want to tell you that 12 are women. So I haven't answered the first question about gender. So I think I'm Rabbi number 12. But now we have 8 women in the studying in the seminary to be rabbi. So it's going to increase. It was very difficult at the beginning because the Latin America is a very conservative country, so very macho way. That's difficult. But now it's okay. Beginning to be okay. It's not okay. We have a lot to work. But regarding the communities, no, not every Jew are from Europe. We have what we call the emerging communities that are Marranos, Anusim, you know, that came before, and for example, the caucho exploitation to Brazil and in the jungle, and were there in Peru, also in the jungle. So we have communities that now are converting and are emerging communities. So many of these 110 rabbis are working in the different countries in Latin America. So we have a natural bonding and communication between the seminary and our graduates. But we have the same problems in other regions. Sometimes we work together, sometimes we don't feel like brothers and sisters. So I think this kind of meetings, it's great to work, to feel more like one whole family.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sorry I couldn't get to all the questions, but we are trying to stay within our time limit. So thank you. I'll pass it over to whoever's next.
Rabbi Ellen, and Renee, can I make a request? If it's possible, there are a handful of women that actually haven't opened their cameras for a moment even. And I know there's a lot going on. Like I just saw my soul mom, Susie, who's here. But if we could have like a moment, and Layla, like I just can't enjoy it. Like there's like, if we could have a moment of everyone opening their camera and then we could quickly just see each other for a moment, that would be such a great gift. We're here.
If we
look each
go
other in the eyes for a moment.
Okay,
So
if everybody goes to speaker view.
Quickly to do that for a minute.
Okay, I will tell you, some people do not have a camera and that's why it doesn't show. But if everybody goes to speaker view, you'll be able to see everybody.
Amazing.
I'm sorry, gallery view.
Amazing, amazing. What a gift.
Okay.
Thank you, rabbis and Renee, for your wonderful presentation. Those who have already donated to Torah Fund in your honor, we thank you. If you would still like to make a donation, the link will be shortly in the chat. I would like to acknowledge all those who made today possible. Our WLCJ speakers, moderator and panelists from our 5 seminaries, Karen Belena, who did our tech, and especially the Torah Fund Study Day Committee, whose names you can find on the last page of the program. Congratulations again to the Pacific Southwest Region Sisterhoods who received the 2019-2020 Torah Fund Campaign Awards of Honor. Most of all, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today for this special event. We have truly been biyachad, together, men and women from the United States and Canada, including all 13 regions of Women's League for Conservative Judaism, from Israel, Spain, Germany, Argentina, and other countries around the world. We will end our program today with a beautiful rendition of Hinei Matov by the New Jewish Community Chorale under the auspices of the Los Angeles Jewish Symphony, conducted by Maestra Dr. Noreen Green. If you wish to remain online after the song ends, you are welcome to do so until 12:30 Pacific Standard Time. B'yachad, together, we can continue to support Torah Fund to help perpetuate conservative Masorti Judaism for generations to come. May we all be b'yachad, together, united throughout the world, and may this year be one of peace, harmony, and above all, good health. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It was really a pleasure seeing all your faces.
Can I leave now?
Yes, and you can.
Thank you, Roberta, and your
very
committee
much. Thank you,
again. You did
everyone.
Thank you very
excellent
much.
job.
Thank you.
Debbie, Margie, everybody, thank you,
Thank you.
Renee,
Yeah.
and everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm so happy to
Thank
see you
you.
all.
Wonderful.
And also I have some guests from presidents of other regions. Thank you for joining us. It was lovely. Thank you. My Sinai Temple Sisterhood members, thank you again. And everybody is my sisterhood now. So thank you, everybody.